I had known John Williams for a very long time, and with this film, I knew this was a John Williams film, and I called him and said, "You must do this." And there's a great march waiting to be written by you.
The beginning of the 70s for me in my career in working in music was particularly set by the beacon of Fiddler on the Roof, which was done approximately 1970, the pre-production and the post-production of that film, all of which I took part in. And at that time, I worked, I think for the first time, for the Mirisch brothers, for Walter and Marvin Mirisch.
He was so enthusiastic about it that he undertook it and did a brilliant job and won an Academy Award for Fiddler on the Roof.
When I came back to Hollywood from having been in London for a year and a half, I had developed a nice relationship with Walter Mirisch and with other people as well. And that sort of catapulted my career in the 70s, so to speak, when I was then able to move on to do films like The Earthquake and Midway and The Poseidon Adventure and these things, not all of which Mr. Mirisch produced, but he was a wonderful entree for me in that period and was the catapult for the things that followed, I think, in my career in the 70s.
My best guess is they'll hit Midway from the northwest, but there's no intelligence to support that.
Where Midway is concerned, two pieces of music have remained with me, at least. The Midway March, which we perform a lot in the Boston Orchestra and others, and also another piece called The Men of the Yorktown. It was more of a hymnal piece at the end of the film. Now that I think of it, not so unrelated to the end of Saving Private Ryan, which came decades later.
It doesn't make any sense, Admiral. Yamamoto had everything going for him. Power, experience, confidence. Were we better than the Japanese or just luckier?
The period of the Second World War, military music and band music in general, certainly was part of my background. I was a young child when the Second World War was raging, and I was very interested as a youngster, even 8, 10 years old, of looking at the newspaper every day to see where the various troop movements had been progressing on all the sides. And I was fascinated with the Pearl Harbor attack, of course, as a youngster. It captured my imagination, and we were all just transformed with excitement and even dread in some cases of the history that was emerging. And the Battle of Midway, I do believe that I remember that as a youngster as one of the great naval battles in our history. A pretty horrifically sad day, great loss of life out there on both sides. But it also had a kind of romantic aspect to it. The further we get away from these great naval battles, the further we get away from the tragic elements of them, and they become more romantic pages in a history book. But when I finally was given this opportunity to score the film Midway, I carried with me all that sort of baggage from my younger life. I played in military bands when I was a member of the Air Force briefly. I played in bands in school. I did band arrangements, actually, before I did orchestrations. And although the material for Midway is orchestral, it's also band-like in a way. So I was happy about the opportunity to do this film for Walter Mirisch, and happy to contribute what I could on the subject of Midway. Well, it is certainly one of the roles of film score to attach melodic identification with, in this case, the countries at war or the personalities involved on either side. It is certainly a valid function of providing an oral orientation for the audience that is sometimes helpful, but in the case of films like this, it was pretty much a practice in the preparation of the soundtrack to try to lend some ethnicity to some of the music.
The thing about John Williams that's so wonderful is that he knows when not to use music. He doesn't overburden you in certain areas with it. He knows exactly where it should be.
I don't love you anymore. It was a mistake.
Say it to my face. Say it to my face, God damn it.
That's always a joy, because when you come in to listen to the first run-through, you know, it's boom, he's got it.
Midway belongs to an earlier period, I think, in its style of filmmaking. Certainly that's true. And perhaps to some degree the score also. I do think that the production has its great value, and I remember it very, very fondly. And then, as now, I was very pleased to be associated with it.